What is up, everyone? Eric Cross with you here on the FTN Fantasy YouTube channel, doing the live stream for the Beat Lucas Online Championship Draft. It's going to be starting here in just a couple of minutes at 8:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Pacific. Got obviously Lucas Biery here with me. Lucas, how you feeling, man?
Man, I'm excited for the season to start up. Feels like it's close. I mean, heck, we had a game this morning. I didn't get to watch it because I had to work, but yeah, really excited. Perfect time of the year.
Absolutely. Season's right around the corner. Well, technically started today, but we got opening day part 2, I guess, in about a week or so from now. Obviously, follow Lucas on Twitter at Lucas Biery, Biery 33. Does a lot of great work here and was the NFBC online auction overall winner last year. So absolutely, he's a great fantasy player. And I got another great fantasy player with me to kind of co-host this live stream tonight. You know him on Twitter at MPRichards1981. He is the TGFBI overall champion from 2022 and finished 34th overall in the NFBC main event last year. Mr. Michael Richards, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, Eric. Glad to be back. It's been about 5 or 6 months since I've been on the mic, but always appreciate talking with you guys. Lucas over the last year or so has become one of my best friends in the space, and you and Chris were one of the people who gave me my first shot. Followed me and had me on the Tool Shed pod and stuff. So always love reaching back out and linking back up with you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a bit, but it's shake the cobwebs off. It's like riding the bike. You never forget, right? So it looks like we are about to actually start now. As we'll pull up the draft board here so everyone can follow along live. Lucas is in the number 2 slot here, which is a very interesting spot to be this year, I think. How'd you feel about getting that number 2 spot, Lucas?
I was very happy, especially more so in a 12-team league where in a 15-team league to have the winner of the 2 spot, the pitching that comes back to you on the 2-3 turn, it could be sketchy in a higher stakes league like a main event. But in a 12-team league, just by the rash numbers of around pick 23, 24, there will at least be a really good pitcher come back. So in a 12-team league, I think it gives even more of an advantage to the top of the Bobby Witts, the Julio Rodriguez's, etc.
Yeah, just don't take Garrett Cole in the second round like I did on this exact same live stream that we did. Was that last weekend or whenever the weekend before? And then 2 days later he got hurt. But you went Bobby Witt Jr. there at number 2. I think it's a really interesting spot to be because obviously Acuna's going 1-1 in most drafts. So then there's a real cluster of guys. But Bobby Witt Jr. was your pick there. Was that a fairly easy selection for you?
Relatively easy. Had Spencer Strider also in my mind. Just because I think he's going to be awesome to have in fantasy.
Yep.
Maybe he can even get 300 strikeouts for you, 18 wins if you're lucky for the Braves.
Yep.
But just kind of thinking it through, to get the power speed and to have an ace, hopefully that I like in the 2-3 turn come back, I figured I would just take the hopeful 30 home run, 50+ deal from Bobby Witt.
Yeah, it's almost unfair. Obviously Strider was already the 1-1 for pitchers, and then he adds like a nasty curveball, a good changeup. It's just not fair. But Michael, if you were in the 2 slot there, obviously you got with Bobby Witt, great option. I probably would have went Witt as well. But you got J-Rod, you got Strider, you got Mookie, a lot of fun options there. Would you also have gone with Bobby Witt if you were in that 2 slot? No, Michael, you're in mute. Hold on, Michael. You are. I'm mute you. There we go. There you are.
Was muted. Yeah, I would have done the same thing as Lucas there. I would have been thinking through the same thought process. I would have considered Strider and Witt. I would have ended up going with Witt because I think you can wait on pitching more in 12-team leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as long, because every competitive league I play, pitching gets pushed up. So even a 12-team league, if you wait too long, you end up taking guys you don't necessarily want. So Strider is definitely in play for me. If I would do like 2 or 3 of these drafts, I'd probably take Strider in the 2-hole, one time, and then one time, and then maybe J-Rod or Acuna falls to me there.
That's a fair call.
One thing though, Rob DiPietro, one of my good friends, he's a great player also. He actually mentioned recently that he did some calculations and thought that maybe the gap between Strider and the second pitcher is wider than Acuna and the second hitter. So that puts more credence into bumping Strider up. And I think that's
agree.
what he's up from the 2-hole. And maybe
Yeah.
even go in some main events.
Especially with Cole missing a month or two, whatever it's going to be, and then like it was like Strider was on like an island, and then it was like almost an island of Cole. Then it was the drop down to like the Wheeler, Burns, Castillo range. So yeah, pitchers were dropping like flies. Like that's beginning of draft season. I was really loving like the SP2 range where I had like a lot of the young upside guys like Biery, Grayson, etc. Then you had Senga, Braddis, all of those. Well, is that the Ellie De La Cruz
and O'Neill Cruz?
Ooh, hey,
sorry to interrupt you, Eric. I just was taken aback.
I know. I saw it about half second after you did. That's fun. That could turn out very well or not so much. Wow. I mean, obviously those two guys have massive, like their upside warrants them going there. But yeah, that is pretty risky here. Get a comment here from Steve Clavers. Y'all heard about Ohtani, right? Yes, that's his crazy situation there with Ohtani and his longtime interpreter. That's gonna be interesting to see how that kind of plays out over the next week or two to see what goes on there. But and Ellie and Cruz at the turn, that's
wow.
That's
shook.
That's fun. I mean, you said that could work out if you're really banking on Ellie taking that next step. O'Neill to Cruz taking that next step. I mean, Cruz has been really obviously he's just locked in. There's like 7 home runs in 12 games. I think he has like for stadiums that have StatCast, he has like 3 of the 5 hardest hit balls this spring, or 4 of the top 6, or something like that. Jeez. But it's insane. But yeah, going back to the pitching talk is how many of the how many top 25 arms right now that were like top 25 ADP coming into draft season. Back when we were doing this in like November, December. Are now out for 1-2 months or longer. And obviously, we're already missing McClanahan for the year. We're missing Sandy for the year. So already had those 2 guys out. But yeah, it's definitely the pitching landscape right now is definitely a little murkier at the top than it was a couple of months ago here. But still only 1 pitcher off the board here. Strider went to team 5 there, which I think was a fine spot. Soto and Jordan, pretty fun pairing there for Team 7. A lot of power. What do you think of Lucas? What do you think of that Soto Jordan start? Obviously, you're getting a lot of production in 4 categories, and yeah, Soto might get you 10, 12 steals, but so far your first 2 picks, you're probably getting like 15 steals max. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that this shows you the benefits of an online championship where there's many, many different ways to win in a 15-team league. I think that could potentially work, but in a 12-teamer, I think it's a little bit more viable, just because you can stream in guys that have steals that aren't as deficient in other categories. Unlike a 15-team league, if you're streaming in steals in a 15-teamer, it's a Dairon Blanco and his pinch running, and maybe that's at the bottom of the lineup. So yeah, in a 12-teamer, it just shows you the flexibility in the strategies, and I think that's a viable one. If both of those guys achieve their ceiling, I mean, it could be, two top 3 MVP vote guys. Yeah,
absolutely. Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
On the pairing of Soto and who?
It was Soto and Jordan, just kind of how they not a lot of speed there early on.
Yeah, I mean, you can get away with it more in a 12-team league, I think. I'm still the type of guy who prefers power, speed, and aces up top if I can, even in the shallower leagues. But I definitely love the batting average, like stability you're getting with that. I think that's important. I think people are starting to come along on that. Mm-hmm. They didn't look at it as much as they used to, but having those stable, like high batting average guys to start off your draft is really important because they just don't exist later on.
Yep, no, absolutely. I love both those guys. I have a lot of Soto, a lot of Jordan, especially in dynasty leagues as well. I got a question here from Cooper Rushing. What tools do you use to track your categories? Lucas, what do you use?
Let me put this pick in here.
You're on the clock now. The last couple of picks.
Yeah, about to be here.
Yeah, so we got second pitcher off the board with Burns, and now Lucas on the clock here. Who's he going to pair with? Bobby Witt Jr., Zach Wheeler. I love it. Yeah, Wheeler probably, I mean, maybe with the safest arm or one of these safest arms with how durable he's been. Hopefully, I'm not jinxing him, and he's the next arm to feel some shoulder fatigue or elbow inflammation. But yeah, Zach Wheeler, a great pick there. Was that your plan? Were you, if Burns was still available, would you still have gone Wheeler, or would you have gone Burns there?
Wheeler for me. I have a little bit of concerns about Burns, though they've been alleviated from going to Baltimore. Let me put in my next pick here just a second.
Already here in the third round. Team on the turn went Albies and Francisco Lindor, locking down that middle infield there. Who's Lucas going to pair with? What's your thought process here, Lucas?
Man, I want to make sure I have really good pitching. But I also, there's some such good hitters. I'm not trying to overthink it. I'm going to go with the arm heavy strategy.
I like it. Getting two pretty much top 5 arms there.
May I ask who you were considering if you went a hitter there? Was it Michael Harris?
Yeah, Harris was definitely in my queue, and Pete Alonso was too, just because Pete is, I hate to say the word guaranteed, but I mean, you can pretty much pencil in the numbers. But as far as that question previously with the tracking software, I was at a live draft in Cleveland for our Glarf League. A lot of people use the RotoWire tracking software, and also a lot of people use Roto Labs. For me, I actually don't use any draft software. I pretty much just look at my team and try to pay attention to what's left in different categories, different positions. The experience of doing a lot of drafts, I think, helps me as well. Yep. And for me, I like to just have my draft board pulled up and keep my queue filled up with my targets, and I don't want to have too many things going on to clutter up my mind.
I do. I am the exact same way. I've tried it in the past, and those tools are great. But yeah, it was just too much going on for me during the draft. It's like I know like in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm pretty good here. Maybe I need a little more here. Then you always glance at your team, like, all right, maybe I do need to attack batting average more or steals or saves, whatever it may be. So yeah, and then Pete Alonso went right after you there, as a Vlad Jr. and Michael Harris. So we're already middle of the third round here.
Yeah, real quickly, I use RotoWire usually if I'm tracking like dynasty leagues for like deeper type of stuff. But if it's like a redraft type league, I'm old school. Like I've been doing this for a long time. I'll have a piece of paper and a pencil, stats, and if it's a slow clock, I'll even take the time to write out 12 different players and compare all the stats together. And it's kind of crazy, but it works for me because it's like I'm not being. There's a good. How do I put this? There's a lot of great information out there, but once you become experienced in all the stuff, you can narrow it all down to the stuff that works best to you. Because that's what we're trying to do. We all know how to do this. We're trying to simplify things.
Yep.
If I have 6 experts telling me different things, I've made the wrong pick before, just getting confused.
Yep.
So it's just it's just good to learn, figure out who you trust and why you trust them, and then just simplify it down. And I found a lot of people who've done it for a long time end up back on pieces of paper and pencil.
It's like the Matt Modica. You see him with the graph paper, writing down his team. I love it. I'm old school too. I still obviously like my home leagues. I'll bring computers and everything, but I still got some paper I like to write out some stuff on. So. CJ Abrams going there in the third round. So the team that went Soto Alvarez to start.
That helps a lot.
Goes Abrams there. Abrams is a very, decisive player right now. You're the like in on Abrams or you're really not. Lucas, just in general, you think Abrams is a worthwhile third round pick in this format?
I think so. Former top end prospect. Rushed through the minor leagues and missed time with a leg injury that cost him development. And AJ Preller called him up earlier than he probably should have been called up. Physically, his body's maturing enough to the point where I think there's going to be more power and you're going to get elite volume. Yeah, the batting average might be 240s, 250s, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he hits 20 home runs with 40, 45 plus bags.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think there's some risk with that pick. I mean, you really need the power to be there, which I think it definitely could. But I think that's a good pick when you've already gone with a Soto
Yeah.
and a Yordan Alvarez. Like, all right, you need speed. Boom, there's potential for 40 or maybe even 50. I mean, Abrams has that speed, and he was absolutely rushed. There's like no doubt
Yeah, he
about
was.
that, for sure. Michael, what are your thoughts on C.J. Abrams in the third round there?
I agree with Lucas. I've taken him in a DC in the third round, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but there's he went 18 home runs, 47 steals last year. There's about 10 players in the majors who could put up a 2050 season.
Yep.
And I also think Abrams is a better batting average player than he showed last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's as good as his second half, but I think he's going to hit higher than his projections. So I don't think there's a huge risk with batting average. And shortstop is also an important position to fill early, I found in drafts. So he just kind of, when you need speed, shortstop, a 20-50 guy. I mean, maybe he goes 15-35 or whatever, but it's not going to kill you still. It's still a good.
Right.
So I like him. And I'm also, I don't know if this will come up because he's already went, but I'm also an Ellie De La Cruz fan. There's been a lot of criticism about him being picked high. I think if you know how to build teams, you can absolutely make him work. And same things I'm talking about with Abrams. I think he's going to have higher average than projections say, and he's got even more power and speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm an Ellie guy too, and I mean, I probably wouldn't have taken him 12 overall, but he's one like you talked about how Abrams is one of the guys that can go 20-50. There's like 3 or 4 guys that can go like 40-40 in baseball right now, and have that potential, and Ellie's one of them. And yeah, the floor is a little bit lower, but I think people were kind of saying that he was just bad last year, and yeah, there were some bad parts of his game, but he was still on I think it was like a 20-53 pace, while going through the ups and downs of being a rookie. Obviously, that's a great ballpark. Should be a good lineup around him. So, yeah, he could go 30-50 this year, and it would not surprise me one bit. And the team that went Ellie and O'Neill Cruz at the first turn goes Pablo Lopez and Zach Gallen, getting a pair of pocket aces there, 3-4. So going 2 pitchers there. We get a little pitcher around here, Tyler Glasnow, who started earlier today for the Dodgers over in Seoul. Pitched all right, few too many walks, but first start of the year.
We Eric, funny enough, you were mentioning Modica as far as kind of some of his approaches. One thing I heard him say, which I thought was true, was, we only have so much time in the day, and we were talking about different strategies. You can't listen to everyone. I mean, You have to really have your sources that you trust for your information. 5 or 6, 7+ sources, maybe more if you have the bandwidth. But if you start listening to everyone, it's all going to blend together and it's not going to work. And I couldn't agree more with that point that he made.
Absolutely. And there's so many great analysts, so many great players out there. Yeah, it's hard to have so many voices chirping at you and telling you, do this, target this guy, target that guy. Yeah, definitely. You find the few sites, the few people, whatever it may be that work for you.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that. But there's so many of them out there. There's so many great. So obviously, a lot of great stuff going on here at FTN Fantasy. Got great content, projections, so many tools, a lot of good stuff over at FTN. Got a lot of fun stuff playing for the season as well. With our fearless leader, Mr. Vlad Sedler, who's getting ready to head out to main events out in Vegas. So all the best of luck to him. Hopefully he dominates those drafts and reps the FTN brand well. I know he will. First reliever off the board there, Josh Hader at 4-5, so pick 41 there. Obviously, even the reliever we talked about how the top of the starting pitcher board is kind of getting hammered with injuries. So relievers as well. We lost Devin Williams for a couple of months with a back issue. Jordan Romano's hurt right now, and Yohan Duran, who I have a lot of shares of. That's the one that killed me the most. Was Duran, who I thought could be the overall RP1 this year. I mean, how can you not? Without how nasty he is. So that one hurts. So
he got hurt.
Yeah,
that was agreed 100%. He was just 4th round every time.
Yep. Yeah, I was like, hey, I can, and I'm not like opposed to, like the top guys like the haters and Diaz and everyone, in like the third round or so. But I was like, hey, I can get a guy I think is just as good, a half round or a full round later. So I was, definitely had several shares of him. So that one's really tough. But now we get the second reliever off the board there, Edwin Diaz. So a lot of pitchers so far this round. Everybody is a pitcher except for Luis Robert at the 4-3 there. Everyone's getting their ace so far. Like everybody except for a couple teams have their first, at least one pitcher so far. Obviously, Lucas has his 2 here on the clock here again in 2 picks. Michael, what are your thoughts? Obviously, I guess you were a big Duran guy as well here. Would you be looking to maybe attack relievers, even more so early right now, just given how we've lost so many big names, or has all these injuries kind of changed your draft strategy with relievers right now?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came into this mix, I didn't have to, like, when you do home leagues and stuff, you don't really have to prioritize closers like if you do. They just don't get drafted the same way they do in NFBC. So it took me a while to come along with that. But now in my successful leagues, I have at least one elite closer. So that is something I prioritize. To me, with more of them dropping off, it just bumps up the value for me for the ones that are still remaining. Similar to, with Strider, if the gap widens, it's like there's a smaller group up the top. So I would prioritize trying to get one of those more so now.
Yeah, for sure. And get Lucas on the clock again, going another arm here with Aaron Nola.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that one. Love
it. I wasn't expecting that one.
Hey, but
love the 200 strikeouts. He's very consistent as far as the strikeouts ratios have been iffy, but he's a home run prone pitcher. Home runs are not a very sticky statistic year over year, and we'll see what happens.
It's been the odd even year thing with him, and I think the even years have been his good ones. So hopefully that trend will continue here in 2024. Lucas back on the clock here. What's your thought process right now? I'm assuming you looking at a hitter here after you're going 3 of the first 4 pitchers.
Got a couple hitters I'm looking at. Got other pitchers too. Got a lot of different options. We'll take a hitter here.
Ooh, Jazz Chisholm. Love it.
What's your take on Jazz, Michael?
Well, he's a fantastic talent. There's injury risk, obviously, but if he stays on the field, there's not many players. He's another one of those guys who could put up a 30-30 season easily. So it's I've heard people say it's kind of trending towards the Byron Buxton world where you can't trust him as much anymore. But again, there's not many players with his. If you look at his breakdown for fantasy points per game, he's elite.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If he stays on the field, he's a first, second round pick.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's too early to kind of put him in Buxton territory.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could be trending that way. I'll give people that. But you look at over the last 2 years, basically combined for a full season over the last 2 years, 624 plate appearances, 89 runs, 33 home runs, 34 steals, and the average has been pretty sticky in like the 250-ish range. So you definitely got a good power speed floor there. Witt obviously coming off a 30-49 year, could even, do that once again, or maybe even a little bit more power. I won't be surprised if Witt kind of ticked up into like the 35 homer range. And then if Jazz stays healthy, it's a potential 30-30 threat right there. I mean, he was on that pace last year and the year before. So definitely got a lot of power speed there. And Lucas, I'll let you know when I'm going to an Aaron Nola start, because every time I go see the Phillies, he pitches and pitches poorly. So I think I'm a curse for him. So I'll shoot you a message like, hey, bench him this week. I'm going to the Phillies game or something like that.
Well, this would be that one format. Maybe you could bench him with all the options. So yeah, possibility.
Right. Yes. So 5 picks in here, Lucas. You got your power speed guys, Witt and Chisholm. You got Wheeler, Castillo, Nola. How you feeling overall?
I took the 2 pitchers at the 2-3 turn because Witt was a pretty easy option for me, and you don't really know who's going to come back to you at the 2-3 turn. When no pitchers really went off the board in the 3rd round outside of Kirby and Lopez, I'm thinking, if this draft is just fading pitching, then maybe that wasn't the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, things course corrected there in the 4th round with a lot of arms going. So I feel better. Again, like I said, Nola is not a guy that's going to draw an oohs and ahs, but I just think the stability, and especially to get him as a SP3, is going to help me out in the strikeouts tremendously and in the volume with wins being on an elite team. And Jazz Chisholm felt, I don't want to say like a reach, but it was a no man's land there for me as far as hitters. And I just have a pretty good feeling about him. Like Michael said, 1st round talent if he stays healthy. And, Michael actually brought up a good point to me earlier this week where, if you're in a draft and there's no clear-cut guy, don't just default to rankings, ADP, or what the room usually does. Go out there and be a little aggressive and get your guy. So that's what I did with Jazz.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point there. Like, does that kind of ADP like 50, 60, 70 range is kind of a weird spot. There's a lot of pitching in that range, and not a lot of hitters overall that I'm actually super high on in
Yeah.
general. So yeah, it doesn't matter if I didn't know what Jazz's ADP is off the top of my head, but even if it was like, let's say it was like 10, 15, picks below where Lucas is taken, who cares? I mean, if that's who you think is going to do it, obviously, especially with Lucas picking closer to a turn than in the middle of the round, where you're like, all right, I want him. There's 99% chance he's not going to be there for me. 21 picks later or whatever it is. So yeah, definitely for sure. Let's see. Got a comment here from Timothy. I like the pick in the 4th. Kind of blocked the Acuna team.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that, Timothy. I appreciate that. I think some people might look at this board, and wins have been getting a lot of publicity as far as, win chasing. Avoid a great pitcher on a kind of mediocre team like the Giants with Logan Webb. Like, wins have been really talked about a lot, but I think offenses too. Like, some people would say, man, you passed on Adolis Garcia and you're taking a Marlins hitter. Like, if you were to flip that around. So like, I appreciate that, but it's interesting just how people see things differently. I thought some might put flack on there for passing Adolis.
I mean,
No,
he's become a very,
you got
obviously a
3
great power speed blend, but yeah, Jazz. I think Jazz has more upside.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. I think he's more on the upside versus Adolis. You're hoping doesn't decline too much or anything.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And back to Nola real quick. Like, just look how steady Nola's been over the last 6 seasons. I mean, he's maybe like missed 1 start over the 6 seasons because 20. So obviously 2020 was a shortened season, but he still had 12 starts there, which is basically the equivalent of 32, 33. And then 2018, 33, 2019, 34. And then each of the last 3 years was at 32. And then he has never been below 180 in a full MLB season, dating back to the last time he was under 180 was in 2017. So yeah, you're definitely getting one of the highest floor guys in baseball, and he's definitely better than the 4.46 he showed last year. So maybe he won't win a Cy Young, but getting him as your 3, I think, is phenomenal.
I appreciate that. What were you saying there, Michael?
Oh no, I agree with what you're saying. You're not going to be able to find another team's not going to be able to have 3 pitchers up top that could get close to 200 innings and 200 strikeouts. So I think you did a good thing. Like, if you're gonna go for early pitching, lean into it.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's what I've always said too. Like, don't half-ass your strategy. Whatever your strategy is, go for it. I mean, go all in on that strategy. And sometimes you might have to deviate a little bit based on how the board falls and adjust on the fly. But if that's like, all right, if you're playing going in, it's like, all right, I'm going to load up on pitching early, do it. Don't get like 1 or 2 guys and like, maybe I shouldn't go more. I'm like, all right, if that was your plan, do it. And that was Lucas's plan, and he's executed that so far. Well, a lot of pitchers still flying off the board here, round 5. Bobby Miller.
A lot of excellent arms.
Yeah. Bobby Miller's mean, he's fun to watch. I saw him face off against Aaron Nola last year in Citizens Bank Park, and Miller pitched very, very well against a very good Philadelphia lineup as a rookie. Obviously, he could be a guy we're taking, in round 3 next year. Definitely has that upside for sure. Royce Lewis going in round 5, another, kind of similar to, Jazz. It's Lewis right after Jazz there. Lewis, I mean, it doesn't have the speed, but obviously more power than Jazz, and an injury history of his own with the ACL tears, multiple ACL tears. But when he's been on the field, he's been, in short spurts, a first-round talent there too. So that's another fun pick there. Team 3's got a lot of offensive firepower there with J-Rod, Pete, Randy, and Royce Lewis.
What are your guys' thoughts on Blake Snell signing with the Giants? Timeline, opening day would obviously probably not opening day, but what are you guys thinking here?
I mean, I feel like, obviously Snell's a veteran. He's been around for a bit now. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen him sign a little bit before March 19th, but so maybe you're only getting 31 starts out of him this year instead of 32, 33. But in general, I like the landing spot. Obviously, it's a good pitcher's park. It's a good pitching development team, and but with him, it's like, all right, he's had the 2 phenomenal years where he was a Cy Young winner, and then every other year he's been above a 4 ERA. So it's almost like you never know. Are you getting the Cy Young Snell, or are you getting what I call the Robbie Ray version of Snell, where he's like a 4 ERA and a lot of strikeouts? But at least you got, no matter what, you got those strikeouts to fall back on. And that team right there, Team 9, already had Kirby, who was very, very safe, Yamamoto, and now Snell's is 3. So I think that's fair value. I think Timothy here is in agreement here. Timothy Snell in the 6 is fair value. Now he's signed in a good park. Yeah, absolutely agree. Yep. Michael, what are your thoughts on Mr. Blake Snell?
Yeah, I couldn't have worded it better than you. I totally agree. Another pitcher popped out in my head that kind of fits a lot of that stuff too is Dylan Cease to me.
Yep.
The reason I'm scared of Snell is the whip. The strikeouts are going to be here, but it's like he's in a great park. Like if he's in a park where he could have a really low whip if it comes together. We saw what it looks like when everything falls his way, basically. But I don't think he's going to be that good. So I tend to fade Snell mostly. There's other pitchers I end up falling on in his range, but he's so good when he's locked in.
Yeah.
The second half, he was winning people overall, so I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. In general, I don't have any Snell shares this year just because there's other pitchers I liked, in that range or even later that were I felt better about, that were just less risky than Snell. But I see why people want him in this range for sure. So and that San Fran rotation could be sneaky good. Obviously, Logan Webb and Snell at the top. That's a damn good one too. Kyle Harrison, the young upside player there. We'll see what Jordan Hicks brings to the table, but could be a pretty fun San Fran pitching staff there. And we got Lucas back on the clock here in round 6. A couple of catches have gone the last couple of rounds. JT just went. See where Lucas goes here.
I will throw in, I like that it's hard for me to see the board in my eyes. I need some glasses probably, but I like that he paired Snell with George Kirby in Yamamoto. Like those those whips will help whatever Snell does there. So that's going to work out really well for him, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Snell, kind of like what I was saying about Nola with Lucas, Snell is a damn good SP3. Manny Machado, I love that pick. I think people are writing off Machado too damn soon. Like, yeah, he was a little down last year, but I think we're going to see a nice bounce back from Machado this year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I had him and Real Muto lined up, and I was praying to get both, but obviously nothing's far from a guarantee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, there goes Cease. Cease and Reagans going on the turn here, 6-7 turn to Team 1. I'm not really a Cease guy. I am a Cole Reagans guy though, so I like that one for sure. So you go and looks like your plan was to go 2 hitters. Obviously, Real Muto wasn't there for you, but going another hitter here, Lucas.
The hitting values here, I'm not a big fan of. Looking at a closer potentially.
All right. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, this is definitely a weird kind of range for hitters. Definitely agree on you there. Evan Phillips, Dodgers. I
What do
like
you
that.
what do you guys think about that? Is there another closer you would have kind of looked at over him? It was a lot of options.
I mean, it's what was that, Michael?
I was asking, is Camilo Duval still available?
No.
No, Doval went near the end of the fifth. Yeah, I think like you get to like that, RP like what 8 to 12 range. I think it's just like a massive cluster.
Yeah.
I mean, you got your who else in that range? You got like Tanner Scott's in that range. I think like Andres Munoz. There's a lot of fun arms in that range, but
Bednar, kind of looked at Bednar a little bit.
I like Bednar. I think Bednar is super underrated. I think it's just a Pittsburgh thing. Everyone on that team, outside of O'Neal Cruz, seems to be underrated. So I like Bednar a lot. I'm sure we'll see him go off the board here. And I think you might have started maybe a little mini closer run here after you took Phillips, Andres Munoz went, then Schwarber. Then you got Pete Fairbanks. I like Fairbanks a lot if he can stay healthy. Obviously, that's been the big problem with him. But I like Phillips in general. Obviously, I think like that's his job. I think there's some speculation on, is he the full-time guy? I think he is. Full-time guy for the best team in baseball. I mean, you're getting 30 plus saves. He's shown that he can give you good ratios, good strikeout rate as well. Maybe he's not the flashiest like top 10 reliever, but I mean, kind of like with Bednar, I mean, he's gonna give you top 10 value if he's healthy. So I like that. I like that pick a lot, and I think that was a good time for you to go with your RP1 there.
Think so. Appreciate it. Yeah, looking at a lot of closers there. If Bednar was fully healthy, I've selected Bednar over Phillips before in a DC. But with that current injury label on him, and probably will start the year fully healthy, but there's that chance that he starts on the IL for them to use an abundance of caution. Just kind of went with the guy who got to save the day and put that in the bank.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we got a few more. We got Alexis Diaz flying off the board here.
Real closer run, like you said.
Yeah. And it's been there's a lot of yellow the last 4 rounds or so.
Yeah.
I think over half the picks in the last 4 rounds have been pitchers, and starting to get a lot of those relievers going off the board here. I mean, in the last round we had Clase and Iglesias, and then now Phillips, Munoz, Fairbanks, Alexis Diaz there.
Just got a text here live on the show from Will Garofalo. He says, "I know that JTR snipe hurt my boy's heart, LOL." Absolutely true.
Shout out to Will Garofalo. I love Will. Will, you're awesome, dude. It's always great hanging out with Will out in Arizona at first pitch at the ballpark. Will is a great dude, no
Absolutely.
doubt.
There's quite a few guys with some red suitcases here that will be dropping, and it'll be interesting to monitor that.
Absolutely. Timothy, by the way, I'm a big fan of FTN, just listening because I'm on my way to Vegas for the live draft. Well, thank you, Timothy. I definitely appreciate the support of the FTN brands, and good luck. Good luck in all your drafts out there in Vegas.
Good luck, Timothy.
Absolutely. Got another comment here from Mr. Timothy. Reagan's went late. I think Team 3 made a mistake taking JTR over him. I mean, I like Reagan's a lot too. I think he's going to be, potentially, back end ace for the next few years here, at least in that territory. But I'm not like super opposed to JTR. They're either. Michael, what are your thoughts on that? Would you have gone with JTR there in that spot, or would you maybe have gone with Reagan's or another pitcher?
I would have done what Team 3 did. Exactly. I would have taken Rio Muto there, and then I would have been looking at Phillips or Munoz as my RP1, and then taking Munoz because decision was made for me.
Yep. And obviously Lucas said he was contemplating JTR there. So yeah, I think JTR is fun. I like William Contreras a lot as well. Obviously different skill set there for Contreras. Not getting the speed that you'll get from JTR, but I think he's right there in that C2 discussion.
Do you guys have any concerns about Reagan's? I mean, the big issues for me is following prospects. He kind of just popped up out of nowhere, and then also he's pitching for the Royals.
I know it's funny. I've been talking a lot about, especially like on Toolshed, about how they just have not developed pitchers well. You just heard today the unfortunate news that their former top 5 overall pick from a couple years ago, Asa Lacy's undergoing Tommy John. Now we haven't seen him pitch since 2021 or 2 already. Miss another full season, and that's just one example of they have not done well developing. So it was weird to see. It's not like Texas is a pitching factory either, but it was weird to see a player go to Kansas City and then fix him there. So that was, and I was kind of slow to get on the Reagan's bandwagon, so to speak, last year. But I mean, the more I kept watching him, the more I kept digging into the metrics. I mean, same with Screwball. Absolutely kind of similar with Screwball. The more I keep watching video, looking at metrics, the more I like them. So I'm kind of in. I'm definitely 2 feet in on both those guys for sure.
Me too. Huge fan of Reagan's. Like Eric said, his metrics were absolutely off the charts. Yes, it was only a half season. He faced some weak opponents if you look through his game log, but when you show that elite of metrics, he had the 1.5 Tommy John surgeries because they had to do a revision on the original surgery. But as we saw this spring, no pitcher's guaranteed safe. Garrett Cole was the biggest workhorse years ago. Robbie Ray was 200 innings. Next thing you know, you got Tommy John. So if you're fully healthy right now, your velocity looks good. I'm typically okay. Certain cases like Tyler Glasnow usually goes in the second round. That's where I would draw a line. But for the most part, if you're fully healthy and the price isn't too crazily exorbitant, which I was surprised that the price on Reagan's hasn't been higher all winter. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that especially with all the helium on Reagan's, but maybe it is because there was only a dozen or so starts that kept him down. But I thought the ADP would be closer to Screwball than it has been. I definitely thought Screwball would have the higher ADP, but I am shocked, a little shocked. I'd say that the ADP isn't a little bit higher for Reagan's. But hey, I've capitalized on that, so I'm not complaining whatsoever. Good comment here from MV. I still like Kimbrel even though he's past his prime. I mean, Kimbrel, man, Kimbrel's he's always interesting. I mean, as a fan of a team that had Kimbrel as our closer for a couple years, and he was pretty good for the most part in his tenure here in Boston. But even the saves were just like headaches. It was like, all right, let's just load the bases and then strike out the side. So I think there's and we've seen the bad from Kimbrel. He had that year where he was like a 6.4 ERA or whatever it was, but he looked pretty good the last couple years. So, I mean, I would love Kimbrel as my RP2. I'd be fine with that. Little hesitant to have him as my RP1.
Actually, Lucas and I just talked about this recently. It's with Kimbrel. I mean, he's kind of like a Kenley Jansen. Like he's had such a long track record. But the reason to like Kimbrel right now is his price combined with his role. Like being the closer for the Orioles has value in itself. So unless he gets hurt or completely loses it, like he's gonna be a guy who gets you 30 plus saves, and he's still capable of having close to 100 strikeouts too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's still even in the bad seasons for him, even when things were going rocky, he was still striking out a ton of arms. Like that has always been the constant with Craig Kimbrel. Obviously, you got always had the big fastball, got that knuckle curve, so you got that to fall back on for sure. And now we're back over to Lucas here for his 8th round pick. We're at pick 95 overall, so nearly out of the first 100 picks here. What's going through your head right now, Lucas? Where are you looking?
Man, I had about 3 or 4 guys that I was going to do a cartwheel about, and they all got taken. Will Smith, Brian Reynolds, Paul Goldschmidt. So
I just got sniped on Goldschmidt, and I'm not even in the draft. I just felt it.
Yeah, that stung. That was a good call there by Alcock. Gonna have to reassess here from the drawing board. Let's see.
I like Goldie too there. That was a good pick.
Have some arms available that I kind of have queued up, but seems like the hitting's a slight reach at this point. We'll go with the old reliable, Xander Bogaerts.
Hey, you'll get some dual eligibility out of him shortly into the season there. Moving over to second base for the Padres, which I think is probably the right move for Xander at this point in his career.
Yeah. We kind of figured it was coming, and you even more so as a Boston Red Sox fan.
Yeah, it stung. I mean, I love Bogey. I mean, he signed here when he was 16, was with the org for, what was it, 12 years or whatever it was, 13 years. So that it did sting, but yeah, I definitely noticed that he was, on the back half of his career and would have to move up a shortstop here. But back over here to Lucas, the team on the term went a couple of hitters here with Christian Walker and Spencer Steer. I mean, that's rock solid. Not
Very
not
solid.
not flashy, but solid. I like Steer a lot. Dual or tri eligibility depending on the format you play in. There you go, David Bednar. You were talking about him 2 rounds ago when he took Evan Phillips. So you must be pretty happy that Bednar was still waiting there for you in round 9.
I'm happy about like the price point, but 4 hitters with the 5 pitchers feels a little unbalanced. But like we mentioned with Soto Alvarez in an online championship, I think you can come away unbalanced and figure out ways to manage through it with the replacement level being so high on waivers. And there's also the other thing I think is going to happen in these OCs, and Eric, chime in if you've seen this, but like certain guys get dropped that just shouldn't be dropped.
Yep.
People are burning and churning, and a guy starts out cold, and I'm not going to say Dansby Swanson would be cut, but a very high caliber player is cut, and you can make changes to your roster all season.
Oh, absolutely. You've seen like top 150, top 200 players cut 2 weeks into the season. I'm like, that the overreaction is always way too much. It's crazy. It really is.
I'm old enough to remember when Sean Murphy was being cut in like one catcher leagues. What a joke.
I know, right? So a lot of the fun picks have gone on here in the last round or two. This is, Team 12, the last turn, the 7-8 turn on the other side of the board. Wyatt Langford, Tristan Cassis. That's also very fun. Langford going, so that's pick 84 overall. Obviously, the hype on Langford is astronomical right now, as it should be with how he's performed this spring. So, Lucas, would you have considered Langford? Like, was he a target for you at all, or was he just going too high for your liking?
Man, that's a toughie. I feel like I'm going to be on the wrong side of history, not being a huge fan of him. Not paying full freight for him. Usually prefer to draft the more projectable guys that have a track record on their hands. So yeah, I wasn't really going to be looking at him on this turn, but I did kind of think maybe I should be. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, Michael. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, I was going to say I was much more interested in him when he was like a 13th round pick in 15 teamers.
Yeah,
I could get him or Jackson Churio or someone, kind of take a stab on a gamble with a lot of high upside. But it's just hard. Like, I don't trust spring training stats to begin with, and just the lack of experience. Like, it's kind of one of those things. But we've also seen those premium guys. They step in and they're early round picks immediately. So he might be one of those guys. I guess I'd like to have him on some teams, but I'm probably not going to end up with him on my most important teams, type of thing.
Yeah, that was a good point. And I tweeted out a handful of days ago the month by month ADP of Langford, and like it started out like I think it was like 130, 140 range, and then like December, January, that's when it went down to like the 160s, and now it's like last week or so it's in the top 100. So yeah, the time frame to get Langford at an affordable price tag definitely has passed. I had another home run today. We just got some comments here on Langford. Langford's going earlier and earlier. He absolutely is.
Yeah, he is.
Timothy checking back in last year. Jordan Walker went higher than Wyatt this year. I'm in on Wyatt around pick 100. I'm not even sure if you can get him at pick 100 anymore. I think
that was his lowest pick in online championships from the last 39 drafts. I kind of pulled that data before the draft here, and definitely skyrocketing.
Yeah, it's more like we saw him go 84 here. So yeah, I think
84. I think
you gotta. I think that 80 is where you're gonna have to like target him, and depending where you are in the board, you might have to go a little earlier than that. Langford hit another bomb today. Should make opening day roster. I mean, Yeah, I think he absolutely should. Will he, though? I mean, we've seen it before, but obviously with more incentive to, bring these guys up earlier. And then Texas obviously has two of the, front runners for AL Rookie of the Year this year with Langford and Evan Carter. So we'll see on that. Timothy again. Wyatt is not overvalued in the 7th and another C. I mean, I'm okay with it. Obviously, I'm a big Langford guy, and anyone that follows me knows that I've been kind of freaking out about him this spring. But I'm definitely a huge believer. The metrics are all there. We could fast forward and we'd be doing this again 12 months from now, and he could be a 2nd-round pick, and that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. So, but we'll see. Obviously, he's a rookie. Who knows? Even the surest bets, or what we think are the surest bets for top prospects, don't always pan out. And MV checking back in. Jackson Holiday too. I'd be surprised if he wasn't the starting second baseman for the Orioles come opening day. That's definitely how it's trending there, for sure. Obviously, we got Jackson Holiday. We got Cameron Arrow up soon, not on opening day, but it's a really fun year for rookies. Absolutely. And Carter just went to team 8 there in the 9th round. Jackson Churio right after him. Volpe, a lot of fun upside plays here.
Bit of a surprise there with Ryan Presley in the 9th round.
Yeah, I know. That's, obviously Hader signing there depleted Presley's value unless you play in a league that values holds in some way, which obviously he's still, a stud in any of those formats, but obviously not, no holds in this format. So, yeah, definitely interesting. Alzolay, I kind of like, though I think there is a little bit of, debate over is he the guy or is he just one of the guys? And, they haven't really kind of done anything to cement that notion, but I think, he's going to be the leader of the guys there with the Cubs. And I like the skill set a lot with Alzolay. So
job last year, they went through every other option on their team.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he was good. It's I think he deserves a shot to run with it personally, but who knows if they will.
I'm sure you guys have seen the news where Craig Counsell has not confirmed him as the closer.
Yep.
If you're a player, what's kind of your psyche as far as why do you think he's doing that? Do you think he's trying to motivate Alzolay or just keep his options open in case he changes his mind? Or, he doesn't have to say he's our guaranteed closer, but you could say, we're going to look to give Alzolay the ball in the important spots of the game. If you were to say that, it's kind of getting the point across, but at the same time, you have flexibility. What do you guys think about that quote if you're a player?
It was definitely weird. I mean,
Yeah.
Got to wonder what's going through the mind of Adbert Alzolay. It was definitely worded, peculiarly by Counsell. Like you were saying, Lucas, he said something like, "Hey, we're gonna use him in the most important spots." I mean, I think that'd be, a confidence booster. Like, hey, Craig trusts me to. I mean, whether it's the 9th getting those last 3 outs, or I got to come in and face Acuna in the 8th and Matt Olson in the 8th or whatever it might be to get out of a jam to preserve the lead. And I definitely would feel great about that as a player. And obviously, not sure how Adbert's taking that, but and maybe you're talking behind the scenes, and maybe there's Adbert knows he's the guy, and Craig's just not saying that for whatever reasons. Hard to say there, but. Let's see here. Yeah, MV, that's some great value on Arenado. I agree. I just what I was saying with Machado, who Lucas got in the end of the 6th. I like Machado more than Arenado, and obviously ADP kind of is similar in that regard. But Arenado in general, I think, is being maybe not written off, but I don't think the fall off is happening. Maybe it's to be a slow descent for him, into his mid 30s, but. I think you're going to see a lot of bounce back from that St. Louis offense in general. Goldschmidt, Arenado, I think Jordan Walker takes a step forward. So I think that's definitely going to be a better offense. And, I like Arenado there a lot, especially for a team that had went 4 pitchers in a row and then getting those 2 hitters. I think Will Smith was great value there in the 8th. I like Will Smith a lot this year.
Amazing value.
Will Smith, he's got 3 400 OBP guys hitting in front of him. With Mookie, with Freddie, and Ohtani. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. And they already got on base 8 times combined earlier today or whatever it was. So, yeah, definitely, liked Will Smith there a lot. I think Will Smith could be the C1 this year. I could easily see him, and I like Adley a lot. But when it came to like Adley or getting Smith, JTR, Contreras like 20 picks later, I've been more willing to shop in that range than Adley. Who again, I like Adley, but I like the price on the other kind of tier 1 catchers a bit more this year.
Bit of a price boost up there for Shane Bieber. A vote of confidence at pick 115.
Yeah, Bieber's been an interesting one. Obviously, the velocity back up, which obviously is a big thing for him, as he's not a guy that's letting up the radar gun, throw a 96, 97. Seeing him bounce back to where he kind of was a year or two ago, very encouraging. I'm still not probably gonna have a lot of shares of him, but I definitely can see the allure of taking a Shane Bieber there, and back to back with Michael King.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go over to the Michael on this show right now. What are your thoughts on Michael King there? Another guy who excelled down the stretch, limited track record as a starter, but some intrigue there.
Yeah, it's good stuff. He was really good down the stretch. It's one of those situations where there's enough red flags for me where I'm not tending to fall on him as much as some other people might. And because he transferred, I don't really like guys who go from the bullpen to become starters. That doesn't work as often as well. I do like his park and his team and everything like that. I guess it's just I like other pitchers and other players around him more, so I haven't fell on him. But as for Shane Bieber, I saw he went in the 8th round of main event last night, I think. So that's just his new. That's how people value him now, close to top 100.
Yeah, kind of in that 110, 120 range for sure. Yeah, a couple Team 12 going YOLO. Yep, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That team's a lot of upside there. We'll see how it plays out. But
I thought he was going YOLO until the Presley pick, and now I'm thinking he's just not prepared.
Who knows? We'll see how that team turns out. We got Lucas back on the clock here. Pick 119 overall. Oh, I like that a lot. Ketel Marte having a great spring.
I hate to fill my middle infield this early, but I just, again, like we went back to the previous point, I think he's a reliable player, and he helps a little bit in 5 categories. Part of a World Series offense, no problems with it.
Yep, 100% agree. He's definitely an undervalued player for sure. Like, could he easily be a top 75 player this year? And I think he was last year too. And there we go. There's Jordan Walker. We just mentioned a minute ago. I love Jordan Walker. What were your thoughts there on Walker, Lucas?
People were really down on him, similar to Volpe, but he produced a solid year. It wasn't what people paid for due to the inflation that some prospects have received in this market. But I just think that he's going to be more comfortable in the second year. He did a really good job, more importantly, of lowering his ground ball rate and lifting the ball a little bit more. I think if he's able to continue to do that, he can meet this price and potentially easily exceed it if the power shows up a lot with that elevated approach.
Yeah. Obviously, it wasn't, like you said, it was a little underwhelming given the expectations on him entering the year. And I think some of that spring training hype when he was, had that 2-homer game, which I was at, and a lot of the first pitch people were at, tweeting out video. So I definitely contributed to that for sure. And I've been a big Walker guy for a while now. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's still upside for 30+ home runs. He can give you, at least 10 to 15 steals, decent average as well. And again, I think that lineup around him is a pretty good, nice bounce back year for a lot of players in that St. Louis offense. So easily could see his ADP, cut in half or cut by, in third next year. He could be, top 30, 40 pick. I think that's definitely in the cards, so to speak, with Jordan Walker there. So I like those last 2 picks from you with Ketel and Jordan Walker. I think that was really good. Get your outfield too there. Pair with Jazz. Pretty fun outfield so far.
Yeah, I don't have any Nick Castellanos this year, but that was a point where it felt okay. So when he went, that was a slight disappointment. And I had George Springer queued up as well, as you can probably envision. But yeah, Jordan Walker, not too worried about the playing time. I do wonder about his role. Defensively, I noticed that he was one of the worst outfielders defensively of any regular. And I do understand he's transitioning from a third base position, but if that doesn't improve, he's looking like a DH at age like 22, 23.
Yeah, let's hope not.
Just trying to be realistic, so
No, absolutely. That's definitely in the cards there. Christian Encarnacion Strand going right there in the middle of the 11th round. So pick 126 overall. I mean, more playing time has opened up here. It's funny, like everyone was talking about, and me included, about how like, oh, how is that going to play out after they, acquired Heimer Candelario and then didn't make a subsequent move to, maybe trade Jonathan India or whatever it may be. But now you have Marte out for half the season with that suspension. You got TJ Friedel in the outfield with a fractured wrist. And then the latest thing which is still kind of ongoing. We'll see exactly how long he is out, but Matt McLean, who's a big target of mine this year. I love Matt McLean. Might needs surgery on his shoulders. So it's a rough time in Cincinnati. But hey, some other spots open up. I think solidifies everyday playing time for Encarnacion Strand, who I think everything clicks right for him. Is maybe close to a Pete Alonso, maybe not quite Pete Alonso, but it's kind of like that Pete Alonso light in Encarnacion Strand, but just with a much longer last name.
That park certainly could help him achieve those heights. So, yeah.
And that ballpark gives a nice little boost there for sure. So it's one of the back-to-back picks there with Ruiz and Encarnacion Strand, completely different players. But since you went outfield, was Ruiz, obviously he's a very, polarizing player given his skill set. But was Ruiz anyone you were considering at all the last two picks there, Lucas?
Not for me. He's kind of a guy who's completely off my draft board.
Yeah,
maybe
same.
in the reserve rounds I'd take him, but probably a little bit earlier than that. I'm just trying to be funny, but I don't know. It's one of those guys where, and I already have loads of speed on this roster already.
Yeah.
Maybe in the right build, if he fell into the 200s, I'd give it a look, but I don't know. I could see him losing his role because even though everyone will say their depth chart is so bad, defensively, he was a poor player too. And if his WRC plus is in the 60s, this guy could be, look at Miles Straw. It could happen to him. As far as Ruiz, the same thing. I know Michael's is a Ruiz fan. I'm not sure how he feels about him this year. Last year, he liked him, but what do you think? Am I out of my mind here, Michael?
No, I agree with everything you're saying. I did like him last year as like a late speed guy.
Yeah.
He could really get you a lot of steals, but he's not really a power guy. He's hitting in the 9-hole. Oakland was taking away some of his playing time down the stretch last year too. He wasn't an everyday player for them. So we're already seeing signs of that. He's going to get you 50 plus steals if he plays, but it's pretty much an empty speed player. And I don't think the great players in fantasy, I don't think they're targeting him very much. I think they're just getting their steals in a different way with players who contribute in the other categories as well.
Yep.
Well said, man.
That's absolutely well said. I just like putting all my eggs in one basket. With Ruiz, it's either for the most part you either got him because you didn't attack steals well enough at that point in the draft, or you're just putting all your eggs in that one basket. And I think both of those are risky because if he goes down, then you're still hurting in steals. I like to spread my speed around. But the team that took him there, outside of Michael Harris, Harper gets you 10 to 15. You'll get, maybe, I don't know how many steals you get from Mike Trout this year. Who knows? Bo Bichette hasn't really been running a whole ton. And they got, Nick Castellanos. So not a lot of speed already on that team. So I guess it made sense for that team right there. But it's not how I like to, approach speed personally here.
Yeah, maybe that's how it always happens, though. Maybe that's how he always falls in that range, because there's always going to be some multiple teams in the 10th round that are like, I need steals big time.
Yep, I think that's what it is.
I think. Oh, sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
I think that's why his ADP is kind of stayed in that range, because there's always like that team, like Michael just said, that heck, oh crap, I don't have a lot of speed so far. I need to make that up in a hurry. Oh look, here's Ruiz and his 60 whatever steals from last year. So yeah, I think that's definitely kind of the case in a lot of drafts.
I think sometimes for whatever reason, people will look at players, especially in the draft pool, and they'll say, oh, 67 steals. And they'll just think that a good amount of those is guaranteed to transfer over, when in reality, that's far from the case.
Yep.
We've seen Gleyber Torres. He hit the 38 home runs, 19, I believe, against Baltimore. And listen, he's a great player. He's a very good player now, but year to year, those stats, you can't just draft off last year's stats. And I think sometimes people do that still to this day.
Yeah, that 2019 that Glaber had that year. That was just like, if you were a Baltimore fan, like, how like PO'd were you with how I'm pulling up the exact numbers here because I want to see the exact numbers against Baltimore because it was absolutely ridiculous that year. Yeah, so he slashed 394, 467 with a 1,046 slug and 13 home runs in 75 plate appearances against them that year. I mean, that is ridiculous to have 13 home runs and 17 starts against one team. That was like a third of his entire season against one team. That's just crazy.
Got a run going on here. A lot of my boys. I love Bryce Miller, Hunter Brown, Josh Naylor.
I was hoping Naylor would skim back to me, but this is a tough room. I haven't had too many guys fall into my lap that I was hoping for.
Yeah, and you don't have a first baseman yet, and we've had since your last set of picks, 4 of them go off the board with Encarnacion Strand, Spencer Torkelson, Yandy Diaz, and Josh Naylor here. So we'll see what is left for you here in the 11-12 turn. I like Brian Hayes a good amount. He's another one. Like, I mean, it's easier said than done. We say, oh, if this guy gets his launch angle up, I mean, that's again easier said than done. But hopefully with Hayes that can be the case because I think there's still like a top 70 player in there if he can just get the home runs up. Like the quality of contact is already there. He hits the ball hard. It's just into the ground way too often, unfortunately. But I like Hayes a good amount. He's been crushing this spring. A lot of Pittsburgh guys have outside of O'Neal Cruz. Sawinski's been hitting well too, and Brian Hayes. So a lot of fun players there in that Pittsburgh team this year. We are back to Lucas here and pick 143. Old reliable.
Yeah. Catchers this year have been a tremendous value, and
yeah,
I'd love to just get the 2 guys that you can just put in and be happy with what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the younger upside plays here. Obviously, people love Alvarez and Ian or Diaz and all them, but yeah, you just went. Yeah, you said 2 guys you can just pencil in. Contreras has been like a top 10 catcher for forever now, and Raleigh, one of the best power options at the position. Had, I believe it was like 32 home runs last year, or 31, 32, something like that last year. Obviously, the average won't be super great, but brings a lot of value there. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. You didn't have to reach and got 2 top 10 catchers.
Just get the 1,000 plate appearances from the backstops, and
yep,
you're going to get good statistics, and you don't have to maintenance it too bad. I mean, I think where people can get into trouble in the online championships and in the 15s as well, but I just don't want to have to deal with an Elias Diaz where on the road he's going to be atrocious. Last year he was good, but that's not going to be repeatable necessarily. Or, the Toronto catchers, if you're only getting, 3 or 4 starts a week, I just would want to pull my hair out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like I've been trying to attack catchers earlier this year because I think really like Austin Wells is the last one where I'm like happy about having him as my C2. There's other guys like I'd be okay with like Kirk or Connor Wong or someone like that, but yeah, the last guy that I'm like, all right, this guy's probably gonna give me a good amount of playing time and solid production. Then like after Wells, which I think he's like the 19th, 20th catcher off the board, I think in ADP. So after that, it kind of falls off pretty hard there. But Michael, what's your thought on the catcher landscape this year?
You guys are saying a lot of good things. I mean, I agree. It's a position that I used to fade a lot and didn't give a lot of priority to in the past until I started noticing all the good players doing the opposite of that. And then I remember 2 years ago when I won the big league, I had, Dalton Varsho and Wilson Contreras. And that was the first league I'd ever drafted 2 catchers in the first 8 picks in any league. And since then, I've just seen the value of it. When those catchers, like when you do the SGP and stuff, they're always popping off as values like $8 more than the next available hitter and stuff. And like, so they do everything Lucas said is true. Those 500 plus plate appearances, guys, you could even take on a lower average guy like Cal Raleigh or potentially Francisco Alvarez. Like it still works. It's very useful when you don't have that good second catcher. You see it, you feel it.
You feel it hard.
Yes, you absolutely do. Uncle Ted, Salprez is a monster. Yeah, absolutely. He's been a very consistent guy. Obviously, had that massive 2021.
What a monster.
Yeah,
that's the perfect word for him. If you watch Kansas City on MLB TV, great call there from Uncle Ted with Ryan Jeffers.
Yep.
Second half of the season, he was a star and started all their playoff games. If they wouldn't have made that colossal mistake and given Christian Vasquez 3 years, $30 million, his playing time would be higher, but they're still focused on that sunk cost. Legend, yep. Boston Red Sox legend there with Ted Williams and Vasquez.
Yeah, Vasquez, he was great. I liked him. Obviously, not a stud by any means, but for what he brought to the table, just for real life baseball, like how he handled the pitching staff, his defense, his arm, and he could hit a little bit too. So yeah, definitely, he was one of the fan favorites here in Boston for sure.
Didn't he return you guys a big player in the trade to the Astros? I know Emmanuel Valdez, but Wilyer Abreu as well. So that's kind of the gift that keeps giving a little bit.
Yeah, Wilyer Abreu factoring into that outfield this year. So we'll see. He hasn't been looking great this spring, but yeah, definitely. That was a worthwhile trade here.
Real good deal.
Let's see. MV checking back in. Geloff is a guy I always target. Did Geloff just go? I don't think I've seen.
He
he just went there. I mean, Geloff at pick. What was that? Pick 150
ish.
Yeah, that's actually phenomenal value. I think it's ADP is like a couple rounds ahead of that, and yeah, the contact skills are subpar, but 25 talent from the second base spot, and you just hope he hits you 250. I think that's great value there for sure on Geloff. What are your thoughts on Geloff, Michael?
Agreed with everything you said. I think you're at this point in the draft where, like you said, the 25-25 type of guys who are going to play every day, there's probably 2 or 3 of them, maybe, if Geloff's the last one on the board. So, like, I understand if you can handle his potentially low average, the power speed and the playing time makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams.
Yeah, for sure. So we're at the little over an hour 10 mark here of this stream. I think we went about an hour 20 on the one last week with me, Lucas, and Vlad Sedler. So probably go another 10-15 minutes here, get through at least one more set of Lucas's picks. That'll put him right at the halfway point of this draft, and then we'll kind of close things out after that. But man, this hour has absolutely flown by. This pretty solid pace in this draft. For sure.
Your draft absolutely flew by. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think we got to like, what round was I in? I think it was more like 18, 19. Yeah, I think we had a few more picks in mind. Oh, Jackson Holiday just went at pick 157 to the team 12. That's not really overly surprising there. A lot of upside plays from team 12. But if Holiday is the starting second baseman there in Baltimore, I mean, I don't hate it. I think you got to wonder how much power he provides this year, and I think he's probably more like in the 12 to 15 homer range than 20 plus, where he could be eventually. But if he's giving you even 12 to 15 home runs with a high average and 20 plus steals, I think that's solid value. He has been striking out a little bit too much this spring, which is really surprising.
That is surprising
for a guy like Holiday, but that's not really anything I'm concerned about here. Riley Green, another pick I like there.
Really good pick.
Yep. Green and the same team went to Jarren Duran a couple rounds ago, who I like a lot, and not just because he's a Red Sox, but the metrics on Duran were pretty good. And it looks like he's going to lead off again for Boston this year in front of Rafi Devers and Tristan Cassis. So maybe
with Duran.
Yep.
And is he going to face lefties?
I think so. I mean, maybe he will sit against a tougher lefties. Maybe he loses out on a few starts here and there, but I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to hurt his value at all. I think they'll still play him against most lefties. But
makes sense. Yeah, he's got big breakout potential, I believe.
Duran's got legit 15 homer, 35 steal, 90 plus run upside with a decent average. So he's a guy that went to, what was that pick? Like probably one early, so that's like 135 ish. Like, I think he could cut that ADP in half and be a guy that's drafted kind of where we've been drafting like Josh Lowe this year, in like the 80 range. Another first baseman off the board there with personal favorite Vinny Pasquantino.
Twitter legend Vinny P.
Oh, I gotta love it. Vinny's a fun follow on social media for sure. Hopefully he's and then that would help if Vinny's fully healthy, which it looks like he is, and he's playing up to potential there. That's just another plus for your guy there in the first round, Bobby Witt. Get a little bit more protection there for Witt.
Yep. Is Pasquantino hitting third for them?
That's a good. Let me take a look at that real quick here. So let's see.
He'd be going quite a few rounds higher.
I would think you would want him ahead of Sal Perez just because Sal Perez's on base is far from a guarantee to be above 300, while Vinny P is easily going to be above 350, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it looks like Witt will be in the 2 hole. Vinny, yeah, a lot of places have Vinny P in the 3, Sal Perez in the 4, and then Lord after that. So,
that's a good one.
Nick Prado. I keep forgetting Nick Prado exists. To be honest with you, there's like, oh yeah, he's still around. Hunter Renfroe. I mean, I like Michael Massey a little bit in the bottom of the order. I like Maikel Garcia a good amount, but I don't know where he's gonna hit in this lineup. MJ Melendez leading off. I'm not a big Melendez guy. It's really like that 2, 3, 4, and then a bunch of
Interesting. Melendez at leadoff. I guess like they're going to go Melendez leadoff against righties, maybe Maikel Garcia against lefties.
It's funny. The leadoff hitter today is a lot different than the leadoff hitter like 7, 8 years ago. It's definitely been a bit of a shift in who we see in the leadoff spot these days. But we got Lucas coming up here. Gone 4 straight hitters in rounds 10 through 13 with Ketel Marte, Jordan Walker, and then back-to-back catchers with Wilson Contreras and Kyle Raleigh. Josh Young this one off the board. And Lucas, what are your thoughts here in the 14-15 turn?
Yeah, I kind of had Jung as a potential option there. He would fill my corner infield, and he doesn't have first base, which would be problematic. But I think he's in a great situation. Like we talked about with Adolis Garcia, he's going to be on a World Series contending lineup. But I kind of have to stick with the theme of just steady but reliable and boring, and Ian Happ.
Oh, absolutely. Ian Happ is super underrated. he's never had that one big year, but every year it's just like another like top 150 value out of him. I think that Cubs lineup could be sneaky good this year too.
I got a funny story about Happ here. Once I make this pick, I'll tell it. It's with the reigning champion, Drew Forte. We had a discussion about Happ. That was pretty fun. I'll share.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Let's see. 5 straight hitters for Lucas. Does he go back to the pitching well here?
Had to address the first base with Alec Baum. He's not a guy I don't think anyone really is doing a fist pump when they get him, but he'll serve a purpose. And like we've been highlighting all night, he's on a great offense and a great role security. But with Ian Happ, he was one of those guys where he had a slow middle part of the year, and I think he had a big finish to end the year that gave him his numbers. And his volume is always off the charts. 158 games the last 2 years, 148 the year before that, 57 in the shortened season. And Drew was like, man, I can't believe Ian Happ is ranked so high. He every time I check the box score, he's a 1 for 4 with a run. And it's kind of like, yes, that is exactly what he is. He's a 1 for 4 with a run or RBI guy, but just that volume and showing up every day, that's why he succeeds. So he's going to hit maybe 20 home runs, steal about 10 bases, and have good counting stats for where he goes and hitting the 3 spot in the Cubs lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a big Ian Happ guy, so I like that pick a lot. Let's see, we got a comment here. Back to the catcher talk here from Just Spite. There were some catchers who presented huge values last year that went very late. Yeah, and I think there are again this year. I mean, the guy that hasn't gone off the board yet, who I like a lot, like Luis Campusano, the guy that's now in a full-time role, or at least close to a full-time catcher role. For the most part with Padres this year. So I like him a lot there. I like Austin Wells a lot, like I already mentioned earlier. So there's still some solid value on the board there at that catcher spot. And I think we still got
Herrera get some more. Some time with
Ivan Herrera for sure.
Yeah.
And see who was another one here. There's one more. Oh, I don't think Keeper Ruiz has went yet. And the draft board. There we go. We got it back here. Oh, let's get rid of the big sticky here. Get that out of the way. But yeah, so Lucas, we'll kind of round out this live stream here. You're halfway through 30-round draft through 15 rounds. How you feeling about your team so far? I mean, you got the 3 big starters early. Haven't taken a starter since NOLA, but pretty solid team throughout. How you feeling so far?
Kicking off the draft, I wanted to go pitching heavy because I did one other OC. I'm doing 2 this year, and I haven't played this format in a few years, in all honesty. But I didn't go with enough pitching in the last draft, so I wanted to just go extra pitching heavy in this one, and I'm feeling okay about it. My power feels a little bit light, but again, that's where having that 1,000 plate appearances with 2 catchers helps.
Yep.
While other people are putting in guys that can be part-time in their roles at catcher, having the 1,000 plate appearances banked in is going to be great, assuming health. But I'm curious, and I feel overall pretty good, but I'm curious your opinion on this, Eric. Like they always say, online championship, all-star team, this and that, but I feel like there's compromises you still have to make even in the online championship with the 5 outfielders, the middle infielders. You don't want to have no closers. You don't want to go risky on closers. Do you kind of feel like there's still a lot of not a lot, but some compromises you have to make in the OC, Eric?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what I had to do last week as well, because as we've seen, outfielder, like you mentioned, outfield can dry up pretty quickly, as can shortstop, middle infield especially, because after the first 10, 11, 12 second baseman and 14, 15 or so shortstops, the fall off is pretty hard, and I've been on the wrong end of that and had to have my middle infield spots filled up by less than desirable targets, we'll say. So yeah, there's definitely still a lot that you have to kind of think about in these OCs. Yeah, they're a little different than DCs, but definitely still, like you mentioned, some compromises you have to make there. But I think you did a great job of it. I mean, you got your 3 horses there. There's still a lot of pitching talent on the board that you can get. You've kind of filled your corner infield, your middle infield, got a few outfielders, and your 2 catchers. So I think you've kind of set yourself up well to kind of fill out the second half of your roster here.
Yeah, I'm feeling okay. Again, gonna have to monitor power now that I'm looking at it more. I don't have that many guys that are going to be guaranteed north of 25 bombs. Machado, I think, full season out of Chisholm could present the 25 home runs, but it's a category that is going to need some addressing, I'll say.
Yeah, and I don't think you're in a bad spot power-wise either. Obviously, Witt can get you 30 plus. Hopefully, as we were talking about earlier, Walker could take that next step and maybe get up to the 30 power, 30 home run range. And you got a lot of the guys like Hap, 20, Bohm probably around 20, Bogey around 20 or so. Ketel Marte could get you around 20. So, yeah, I think maybe need a little more power, but I think you're in a spot where you can do that and then still be pretty good in that department. Moving forward, yeah, Lee checks in on catchers. Yeah, Garver, guy that's catcher eligible that won't be playing catcher for the most part. That's gold, and that's another good one here. And we've seen Bo Naylor go off the board last round. Jonah Heim, another solid. Yeah, catcher's getting pretty damn deep for sure here. Before we head out of here, Michael, any closing thoughts on Lucas's build or just any general thoughts about this draft so far?
No, I mean, I think Lucas did a great job. I appreciate you guys having me on here. You said a lot of things that I kind of learned as this unfolding. I don't do as many 12-team leagues anymore, but it reminds me of 15-team leagues with less sniping. So you still want to build your team in a similar fashion, the same similar type of targets. Maybe you can get weighed around on a pitcher in different little spots like that, but the same sort of teams I'm seeing on this board that do well in 15-team leagues are going to do well in this league.
That's very fair. I had a lot of the same feelings, Michael. I did OCs in 2021, so it's been a bit of time here. So not too dissimilar as some of the Champions League qualifiers. Some of those guys don't like the OCs, but they're jumping back in. But I'm trying to embrace the format and embrace different formats, and you're still going to have holes to patch up. You're not going to come out of this thing feeling like $1 million in every spot. That's why Fab exists, and we're going to just kind of grind it out and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's going to wrap up the live stream here. Thanks to Michael Richards for great fantasy player joining me here and me and Lucas to talk about this draft. Lucas, thanks for doing this. It was fun being on this end of the spectrum. Last time you and I had our spots reversed, and I was on the hot seat, so it was fun to do this again with you. Obviously, everyone check out all the great stuff going on over at FTN Fantasy. A lot of great content, tools, the VDP projections that Vlad Sidler puts out. A lot of great stuff over there. Check that over at ftnfantasy.com. And we will see you all again soon. Everyone, take care.
Take care, guys.